The time is precisely 6:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News edited by J. Yogaraj and read by Chandima Virakon. Headlines. State Poson Festival will be held today in Mahintale under the patronage of the President. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa will address the nation tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. The Mahintala Lake House Aloka Puja, which is conducted as part of the State Poson Festival centering the historic Mahintale Rajamahaviharaya, will also be inaugurated by the President today. 442 persons have been arrested for violating quarantine laws and travel restrictions during the last 24 hours. The travel restrictions will be relaxed tomorrow at 4 a.m. Although the travel restrictions are relaxed tomorrow, the interprovincial travel restrictions will remain in force. A study by Oxford University researchers says AstraZeneca Pfizer vaccines are effective against Delta COVID-19 variants. A vaccination drive is implemented in 14 free trade zones coming under the BOI. On news overseas, Miami building collapse. Rescuers search rubble for survivors. In sports news, Quinton de Kock returns to top 10 after big runs against West Indies. Local stories in detail. The State Poson Festival will be held today in Mahintale under the patronage of the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. The Mahintala Lake House Aloka Puja, which is conducted as part of the State Poson Festival centering the historic Mahintale Rajamahaviharaya, will be inaugurated by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today. The Mahintala Lake House Aloka Puja is being conducted for the 59th year in succession. This Pinkama is organised by the Associated Newspapers of Ceylon Limited under the guidance of Chief Incumbent of Mahintala Rajamahaviharaya, Most Venerable Dr. Valava Hanguna Vava Dhammaratana Thera. The electronic media sponsors for this year's National Poson Festival are Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation, Independent Television Network and Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The print media sponsors are ANCL, Lake House Publications. Minister of Irrigation Chamal Rajapaksa, Minister of Mass Media Keheliya Rambukwella and Minister of Power Dallas Alapperuma presided at the opening of the ANCL Mahintala Aloka Puja at the sacred precincts of the Mahintala Maha Maluwa yesterday. The Poson Week is observed from 21st June to 28th June. The theme for this year's Poson Festival is Let All Human Beings Live Healthily Without Any Suffering. This time, the State Poson West Festival and Poson religious observances are observed under strict health guidelines. The religious activities in island-wide viharayas are conducted under strict health guidelines and limited participation. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa will address the nation tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. The Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation has made arrangements to air the President's speech live through all services, including regional services of SLBC. State Minister Dilum Amnugama says, although the travel restrictions are relaxed tomorrow, the interprovincial travel restrictions will remain in force. Therefore, the interprovincial bus services, including the private bus services, will not take place tomorrow. However, limited buses and train services will be carried out inside the provinces. 442 persons have been arrested for violating the quarantine law and travel restrictions during the last 24 hours. Police media spokesman, Senior DIG Ajit Rohana said 42,799 persons have been arrested so far since the outbreak of the third wave of coronavirus in October 2020. He further said there are 1,200 roadblocks stationed to check the vehicles and movement of the general public. A vaccination drive is implemented in 14 free trade zones coming under the BOI. Accordingly, the vaccination process is carried out today to the employees of Sitawaka and Koggala trade zones. 130,000 jabs have been allocated for this purpose. Several religious ceremonies are being conducted in viharayas in connection with the Poson full moon Poya Day. Many religious activities are being conducted in viharayas around the island in connection with the Poson Poya Day. Spirit chanting ceremonies are also conducted in temples, and Buddhist devotees observed still at their homes. The Buddhist devotees in the country are celebrating the Poson Poya limited to their homes in support of the health sector to eradicate the corona pandemic. COVID-19 vaccines made by AstraZeneca and the Pfizer-BioNTech alliance remain broadly effective against Delta and Kappa variants of the COVID-19 causing virus, which were first identified in India, according to a scientific study underpinning a continued push to deliver the shots. The study by Oxford University researchers published in the journal Cell investigated the ability of antibodies in the blood from people who were vaccinated with the two-shot regimens to neutralize the highly contagious Delta and Kappa variants, a statement said. There is no evidence of widespread escape, suggesting that the current generation of vaccines will provide protections against the B1617 lineage, the paper said, referring to the Delta and Kappa variants by a commonly used code. However, the concentration of neutralizing antibodies in the blood was somewhat reduced, which may lead to some breakthrough infections, they cautioned. Last week, an analysis by the Public Health England showed that vaccines made by Pfizer and AstraZeneca offer high protection of more than 90% against hospitalization from the Delta variant. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with the local stories, the government says 78,000 doses of Pfizer vaccines will be received by the country next month. State Minister Professor Channa Jayasimana said that the country is expected to get the vaccine within first 3 weeks of next month. He said that 26,000 doses will be brought down weekly for 3 weeks. State Pharmaceuticals Corporation has purchased the stock of vaccines. It is the first consignment of vaccines that will be brought down to the country. To end the local news, the headlines again. State Poson Festival will be held today in Mihintale under the patronage of the President. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa will address the nation tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. The Mihintala Lake House Aloka Puja, which is conducted as part of the State Poson Festival centering the historic Mihintale Rajamahaviharaya, will also be inaugurated by the President today. 442 persons have been arrested for violating the quarantine laws and travel restrictions during the last 24 hours. Travel restrictions will be relaxed tomorrow at 4 a.m. Although the travel restrictions are relaxed tomorrow, interprovincial travel restrictions will remain in force. A study by Oxford University researchers says AstraZeneca Pfizer vaccines effective against Delta COVID-19 variants. A vaccination drive is implemented in 14 free trade zones coming under the BOI. That ends the local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
On the main news story, the State Poson Festival will be held today in Mihintale under the patronage of the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. The Mihintala Lake House Aloka Puja, which is conducted as part of the State Poson Festival centering the historic Mihintale Rajamahaviharaya, will be inaugurated by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today. The Mihintala Lake House Aloka Puja is being conducted for the 59th year in succession. This Spincomer is organised by the Associated Newspapers of Ceylon Limited under the guidance of Chief Incumbent of the Mihintala Rajamahaviharaya, Most Venerable Dr. Valava Hanguna Vava Dhammaratana Thera. The electronic media sponsors for this year's National Poson Festival are Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation, Independent Television Network and Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The print media sponsors are ANCL, Lake House Publications. That ends the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watch Light. The health officials request the public to follow the health guidelines during this period. Although the travel restrictions are relaxed, the interprovincial travel restrictions will be in force without any change. The public is requested to follow the special guidelines released by Health Ministry to control the third wave of corona outbreak. That ends Watch Light. We move on to the world news. Headlines. Benigno Aquino, 3. The quiet son of Philippine democracy icons. Miami building collapse. Rescuers search rubble for survivors. Canada, hundreds of unmarked graves found at indigenous school. Former Philippine President Benigno Noynoy Aquino III, son of the country's revered Aquino family, has died at the age of 61. While in power from 2010 to 2016, he famously took China to court over a long-running dispute involving the South China Sea, parts of which the Philippines claim as the West Philippine Sea. Aquino had been largely silent and out of the public eye after his presidency ended. A huge rescue operation is underway in Miami-Dade County, Florida, after a 12-story residential building partially collapsed, killing at least one person. Rescuers are combing through the rubble, searching for survivors, and were seen pulling a boy out alive. Images from Surfside, north of Miami Beach, show a pile of debris on one side of the building. One person died, at least 8 people were injured, and there are fears that others are trapped, U.S. media report. An indigenous group of Canada says it has found hundreds of unmarked graves at the site of a former residential school in Saskatchewan province. The Cowessess First Nation said on Wednesday that the discovery was the most significantly substantial to date in Canada. However, the group did not specify the exact number of graves found. It comes weeks after the remains of 215 children were found at a similar residential school in British Columbia. To end the world news, the headlines again. Benigno Aquino III, the quiet son of Philippines democracy icons. Miami building collapse. Rescuers search rubble for survivors. Canada, hundreds of unmarked graves found at indigenous school. That ends the world news. On to development news. The construction work on the Polonnaruwa-Alahara Bridge has commenced recently. This bridge will ease the transport services from Bakamuna to Talagala. A sum of 42 million rupees has been set aside for this purpose. That ends development news. And on sports news, it's tennis and cricket. On tennis, two-time defending champion Andy Murray has been selected for Great Britain's tennis team at the Tokyo Olympics. Murray, 34, will play in the men's singles alongside Dan Evans and team up with Joe Salisbury in the doubles. There is no place for doubles specialist Jamie Murray in Team GB, while Heather Watson and Joanna Konta will compete in the women's singles. The games, postponed in 2020 because of the pandemic, take place in Japan's capital from 23rd July to 8th August. And on cricket news, Quinton de Kock's 96 in the first innings of the second test after he scored 141 in the first against West Indies has put him back in the top 10 at number 10 in the test rankings for batters. He was last in the top 10 back in December 2019, but after top scoring with 237 runs in the 2-test series, which South Africa won 2-0, he has moved above Baba Azam and Dimuth Karunaratne. That ends sports news.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
The commercial bank has secured more discounts and special offers for credit and debit card holders using their cards for online purchases, providing further encouragement to minimize travel and interaction with people. The latest offers announced by the bank encompass a diverse range of requirements from meals, snacks and pharmaceuticals to stationery, consumer electronics and even furniture, and provide discounts of up to 55% on purchases by credit card, up to 25% on payments by debit card, or waivers of delivery charges. That ends Business News.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic news. Courtesy of...
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
And on economic news, Ceylon Salt, which is the only producer of Artemia cyst fish food in Sri Lanka, will be reinvesting heavily to increase their production. Ceylon Salt Company Hambantota Chairman Nishanta Sandabarana said that there is also a growing huge market for Artemia globally as well, and they hope to enter this market and for the first time bring in dollars to the Ceylon Salt coffers. That ends economic news.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Weather Report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
And finally, on the weather report, the Met Department says showers and thundershowers will occur at times in western, central, Sabaragamuwa and southern provinces. Showers and thundershowers will occur in eastern and Uba provinces and in Mullaitivu and Vaunia districts in the evening or at night. Several spells of showers will occur in the northwestern province. Fairly heavy falls, about 50 millimeters, can be expected at some places in western and Sabaragamuwa provinces and in the Gaul and Mathura districts. General public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. This weather report was published this evening at 4:30 p.m. Further details could be obtained by visiting the official website of the department. Meanwhile, the International Weather Forecast website AccuWeather.com predicts that Colombo weather would be generally cloudy during the day. There will be light showers in many places in Colombo district. Tonight's weather will be around 28 degrees Celsius and there will be scattered showers in selected spots late in the night. The air quality index AQI is 18, which shows excellent condition in Colombo. The air quality is ideal for most individuals to enjoy the normal indoor and outdoor activities. That ends the weather report.
Weather Report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
And to end this bulletin of news, the headlines again. State Poson Festival will be held today in Mihintale under the patronage of the President. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa will address the nation tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. The Mihintala Lake House Aloka Puja, which is conducted as part of the State Poson Festival, centering the historic Mihintale Rajamahaviharaya, will also be inaugurated by the President today. 442 persons have been arrested for violating the quarantine laws and travel restrictions during the last 24 hours. The travel restrictions will be relaxed tomorrow at 4 a.m. Although the travel restrictions are relaxed tomorrow, the interprovincial travel restrictions will remain in force. A study by Oxford University researchers says AstraZeneca Pfizer vaccines effective against Delta COVID-19 variants. A vaccination drive is implemented in 14 free trade zones coming under the BOI. On news overseas, Miami building collapse, rescuers search rubble for survivors. In sports, Quinton de Kock returns to top 10 after big runs against West Indies. With that, we conclude this bulletin of news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.